What's up guys and welcome back. Today I'll be making a track like Jamie XX completely from scratch with free plugins or stock plugins only. Check out the snippet. As always, if you want to download the project file of this track, or download the stems if you don't use Bitwig Studio, to mess around with and take some stuff into your own productions, then it's available to download in my paid community. The project files of all my productions for my YouTube videos are in there to download, as well as monthly sample packs, live calls, and so much more. If that sounds interesting to you, they'll be linked down below. But let's get straight into the production. So we got a blank canvas open, and I think I'll be taking inspiration from Jamie XX's track Seesaw with Romy. It's got some atmospheric breakbeat vibes in there, which I think is really cool, so I'll be doing something similar. First, we're just going to set the BPM to 123 to make it a bit more housey. Then we're going to get a kick in. I'm just going to search for a kick in one of my sample packs in my community. I kind of like that one, so we'll just loop that with a housey rhythm. Next, we're going to add a breakbeat. I'm just going to go through some drum and bass breakbeats and make them fit in the track. That one's pretty cool. I'm going to make that fit. And so is that one. I'll add both of these in. But now they're going to sound way slower because it's at 123 BPM. We're going to group these breaks and process them to make them sound really dirty. First, we got a kilohertz distortion to really add some crunch. Then we got a transient control to turn down the sustain a little bit. Then I added a convolution reverb for that really organic drum reverb sound. Super long decay to make it sound really wet. And then lastly, we're cutting out the low end on the breakbeats. Now we're going to group both the kick and the breakbeats and clip them together. Seesaw really has a lot of crunch on the drums, and I think it's because of the distortion and the clipping. So that's what we're going to add on these sounds as well. So we're going to turn the gain up and really clip them, and then turn them down in the post here. Now we're going to add some kind of pad sound with a polysynth. So I've just synthesized this really basic pad sound inside polysynth, which sounds like this. You can hear it's just a very basic saw wave, kind of filtered off a little bit, and the filter is opening up thanks to this LFO over here. And you can see the blue thing going up and down, that's the LFO movement. On that, I've added a resonator bank with 14% mix to make it sound like this. And it does what it says it does, it's just resonating the sound. Another kilohertz distortion. We got a Valhalla Supermassive just with the init preset set to around 66%, which sounds like this. Adding some cool chorusy delay sound effect onto the pad. Lastly, just another EQ to cut out the lows. Now I'll make a progression for it. For a bass, I've added this Phase 4 sound. Also, stock plugin in Bitwig. This may look very complicated, but you really only have to focus on a few things here. I'm only using these two oscillators because these two are turned all the way down, and they're not modulating anything else over here. This oscillator here is turned all the way down, but as you can see over here, it's modulating the first oscillator. So even though it's only this first oscillator that's playing, it's being modulated by the second oscillator. That's got this wave or algorithm called half. Don't really know what it means, but the most key thing here is that it's got a frequency offset, which is giving the phasery like width sound here. If I turn that to 0, it doesn't sound wide at all. It just sounds like a sine wave with harmonics. Then we add 0.41 Hz of frequency offset, and it sounds like this. It's also got a low pass filter cutting out at around 400 Hz. We're just going to copy over those chords and only play the bass notes. We're going to do a little bit of processing on this though. First, a kilohertz distortion again. Next, an EQ to boost some lows and cut out some low mids. And lastly, a bark of dog to really make the low end warm. Now it's time for some atmosphere, and then we'll go on to the melody after that. Okay, so I've just spent like 5 to 10 minutes just really experimenting in this Phase 4 patch here. I've really just messed around with loads of different parameters, made them super weird, not really knowing what I'm doing, but that's a cool sound design process, is really just to experiment. Then I added this random modulator. This also exists inside of Vital and Serum, and I modulated that, mapped that to loads of different parameters, as you can see here, just totally random. this, all the green ones here, I think, have been mapped by this random. Anyway, it makes a sound like this. It's not too fancy, but we'll do some processing. Kilohertz distortion once again. And you can really hear how the random creates this kind of movement, because every new note that I play, it sounds slightly different. Adding a supermassive with around 55% mix, this kind of delay, and the preset forward reverb. And another low-cut EQ. And we're just going to create this melody like RP rhythm. Command B to bounce that out. Make that a bit louder here. Change the color. And we can mute the other layer. Now it's time for some melodies. I think we're going to do one melody for the first 16 bars, and then switch things up and add another melody for the next one. We got another phase 4 patch. I've just duplicated this one over, tweaked a few things. It sounds more or less the same. Let's process that as well. You know the drill, the kilohertz distortion. Next we got a baby comeback for the delay. And then we got a supermassive with the bright room preset at around 33% mix. I'm just going to mess around. I'm just going to mess around on my MIDI keyboard and find some weird, cool melody. It's a really cool melody, actually. I'm going to play that in. Really cool melody, really cool rhythms. I'm sure you're probably wondering what the hell this is, and I'll just show you what that is quickly. These are just pitch adjustments, just like you would in any other DAW where you can make some pitch bends. This is how you do it in Bitwig Studio plugins, where you're just in the MIDI, and you press on this note, the micro expression editing, and then you can click on any note and kind of make it go up, and that will pitch bend it. And I've created that effect with these sounds here. We're going to loop that over for the entirety of the 16 bars though. For the next section, I'm going to add a phase 4, and I'm going to add some kind of ARP. What we're going to do is just take the chord progression from the pad, and paste that down here. Go before the synth, add a note effects arpeggiator, like that. Add it to 2 octaves. Make the synth sound like this. As you can see here, all of these 3 oscillators are disabled in terms of volume, but they're all modulating the first oscillator here. We're adding a bit 8 for some bit crushing at around 22% mix. Another Valhalla Supermassive, this time the preset wide vocal swell. Super cool delay effect, especially for that ear candy. And then another low-cut EQ just around 180 Hz. Now we're going to group that, put a very subtle sidechain on it. We don't want it to sound very prominent, just around like 30% mix. It's mainly just for the transients. I think all the elements sound really cool together now, but we need to add some creative processing on the master to make it sound really vintage and dirty. Just added a tape cassette 2 to the master, turned down the noise, the wow, the flutter, a slight bit of saturation, and just the low pass at 22 kHz. Then we got this SSQ actually to turn down some high end and boost the lows a bit. Then we got another G clip, this time on the master with around 4 dB of input gain. In this track, I'm going to use clipping instead of limiting because I like the crunchy sound that the clipping gives for this kind of track. That's it for this little production, guys. If you found it cool, let me know down in the comments below, and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Like I already mentioned, the project file is available to download in the description, but I'll play the track through and that'll be at the end of the video.